Hi everyone, I'm here today to show you a simple yet effective and really cool way to create an abstract background for your watercolors. The only things you really are going to need are going to be a few different colors of watercolor, which I have chosen here. You do want to mix them down with a little bit of water, so cut them with some water, place them in different containers. A spray bottle is another thing you want to have on hand because you are going to use it to activate your watercolors as well as saturate your paper before you pour them. So I right now have Daniel Smith watercolors, which are my favorites, and I also have 140-pound Arches cold press paper. The cold press is really nice as far as creating a texture for the watercolor, and it's really absorbent, so you get a really nice dispersion of the color. Really don't worry about as far as the paint dripping or causing a mess. It's super easy to clean up. So you want to have a misting spray bottle and a bottle that you can really saturate your paper with. And you're not looking to do a wet on wet, so you don't really want to cover the entire sheet. But instead focus on areas where you really want to have some of that paint settle in, and then have some dry areas where you don't want it to necessarily run. Again, we can add more water when we're done here just to activate more of the paint. So right here I have Daniel Smith's newest color, which of course is their phthalo blue turquoise. Happens to be a favorite of mine. And I'm just going to add a few dashes of color here. And we can add more as we go. And the cool thing is too is that because of the water, it's causing a little bit of dispersion and even cell division. I have a really beautiful seafoam metallic color here, also by Daniel Smith. And I'm just going to add a couple dashes of that color in here. And again, wherever my watercolor or my water did not activate with my paper, your paint is going to tend to not run nearly as much. This is also another Daniel Smith paint and is one of their genuine purple colors. And I really love this with turquoise. It's just a beautiful color. My last one is going to be one of their bronze metallics. If you cannot tell, I love metallic colors. And I love metallic pigmentation. So one of the reasons why this is so cool is it creates a really interesting background, and one that doesn't require that you use any brushes. Basically what we're doing is we're almost doing a pouring technique here. And this is just to create something of an abstract background for your watercolor. And again, we can add more color, we can add more pigmentation. Right now, the phthalo blue turquoise seems to be the most predominant one. So I'm going to add a couple other pigments here to help balance that out. When you're done with something like this, allow it to dry, and then you can actually go over and paint something over the top of it. I intend on doing a painting over the top of this painting, or on the top of this background as well. And that gold metallic is creating a really cool sheen on here. And again, you can activate by adding more water to soften the edges on your paint here. I'm even going to use it a bit to cut my paint here. Now, depending on the type of paper you use, some are more absorbent than others and some can handle the paint better. Arches is definitely one of the best. It is, again, 100% cotton, so it's very absorbent. And it allows for us to do layers and layers of color here. So you can just kind of move this as you want to, activate the paint as you want to. It's now all taking on something of almost a holographic sheen here. And since I am a fantasy artist, that's most likely what I'm going to be putting on here. What's really neat about this though is that you get this non-uniformed look where you have no brush strokes and you have no regulation to it at all. Instead, it's just done solely because of the paint. I'm going to add a couple darker dashes of color here and allow them to settle into the paint there. And I'm going to leave them to dry that way so I have a little bit of some contrast as far as my darker and lighter colors go. And while I wait for that to dry, I can get ready to do a painting with this as my background. And as you can see, our layering now has started to pay off, where the bottom layer has started to set and our top layer that we're putting on is just starting to settle over the top of that. And I really do like the look of having a bit of a break in there as far as some negative space with the white. I've also taped off my paper to ensure that I have a clean edge on my painting. Another thing you can do, which I'm going to add in here, is I would like a couple dots of gold where I'm going to have more of a controlled dispersion of my metallic pigment, and I'm going to add a few of these in here. And you can even flick them on here as well and just give a little bit more of a solid look into our background versus just dispersed everywhere. Now you'll notice too that every time you lay it on your white paper, on your negative space where your paper was not wet, it doesn't disperse because of course it wasn't wet before. So this is just one of the many ways that you can create a really neat, really non-uniformed background for your watercolor. I'm going to allow this to dry and then I'm going to do a painting over the top of it, which I'll post later so you guys can actually see what I placed over the top of it. Again, I really like this technique because you don't have any brush strokes and you don't have any telltale signs that you've worked on this. And you're kind of getting what you get because you can't really control what's happening with the paint. Thanks for joining me.